Hey YouTube, today we're going to be talking about programming and actually what is it? So we're going to demystify the art of programming a computer and exactly what it takes to do it for reals. The three things you should take by the end of this video are what programming is and how to do it, distinguishing between the different fields of programming and what they are, and then how to get started and why I've enjoyed professionally programming for the last 10 years. First up, what is programming? Essentially, this is just writing some text files using a specific programming language, like Python or Java. Think of using Notepad++ or text editor and writing some code in there, and that's it. From there, you use a compiler or other tools to convert to machine code, and that's the language that the computers understand, which is usually binary, so ones and zeros, or on or off in electrical signal speak. After you've done that, you package that up into a build artifact and deploy it somewhere so it can run. Usually this is a Linux server in the cloud or a mobile device if it's a mobile app. If you boiled it all down, programmers are essentially translators that are taking business requirements and encoding instructions that a computer can understand. There's hundreds of different languages that you can use to do this. Some examples are JavaScript, Java, Ruby, Python, and each of them has its own quirks and strengths and weaknesses that you should choose from whenever you're figuring out what your project is. On top of that, there's different coding styles, like how do you name your variables or your files? How do you organize those files within your folders and different project structures? How is the development team organized? Are they a big team, a small team, or is it just you? Then you get into personal preferences like the infamous tabs versus spaces. From here, we can talk about types of programming. So mobile development, web development, and what I'm going to group into other. For mobile development, where does the code run? Mostly it runs on your mobile device via an app that you install from the specific store that's on your ecosystem. Sometimes there's also backend servers that are used to communicate with the mobile app, and those usually have Java or C# or C++ or other backends that are leveraged to accomplish that. Let's walk through deploying an app in both platforms. First one, for iOS or Apple, you write code in an IDE or integrated development environment like Xcode. Usually this is either Swift or Objective-C. Then you test your code on a computer using an emulator, which is a software version of a phone. So you can boot this up and you don't necessarily have to have a phone. But you can also use your own physical phone if you have one. Then you package up the code into a zip file and then submit that for review to Apple, and once it's approved, it'll get listed on the App Store. A very similar process happens for Android. First, you write the code in an IDE, and this one is usually Android Studio. The programming language of choice is Kotlin, but you can also use Java. Then you test your code using an emulator, again a software version of a phone, and you package up your code into what's called an APK. Then you submit your app for review, and it gets listed on the App Store once it's approved. For web development, the code usually runs both in the browser, like Google Chrome or Firefox, and on backend servers. Typically, the front end consists of JavaScript, and the back end has Java or C# or whatever language the developers are most comfortable in. Something to note here is Amazon has introduced what's called AWS or Amazon Web Services, which has really changed the game for back-end servers. Previously, companies needed to purchase their own equipment or data centers and had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get up and running. But now, just a single developer can subscribe to AWS and pay for just what they need and scale up, have millions and millions of users. Now we'll get into the other category. This I'm lumping in hardware. So airplanes could be an example of this, where they have custom systems that run probably C++ or C and get really into the low-level details of how that custom system works. Another category of hardware is Internet of Things, or IoT. This could be the robot vacuum cleaner you have in your house. So these systems need to be programmed by somebody and usually have a backend system that has some kind of artificial intelligence or AI involved to be able to map out your house and know where to vacuum next. The next category is game programming. So we're all familiar with writing games, but where does the code run? Well, for multiplayer games, it usually has, again, backend servers that use C# or C++ or Java, but the device that it runs on is usually your Xbox. That usually is whatever the platform needs. For Xbox, it would be C#. Typically, these also require some kind of framework, so Unity or Unreal Engine are two top ones that I usually see. So how do you get started? Well, first, I'd suggest narrowing down to a type of programming. If you want to do mobile game development or you want to do web programming, then you can dive into that and do some more research to see if it fits your needs. Then pick a programming language. Don't try and learn Java and C++ and Python. Pick one and start writing code in it. Then you'll get a feel of how it really is to be a programmer and how tedious it can be sometimes. Once you get past that, watch a bunch of tutorials and continue learning. This YouTube channel is a great resource if you're interested in Ruby or Kotlin programming. From there, consider joining a bootcamp. If you're serious about switching your career and you've written a bunch of code already, then this is a great way to get into the field. I've seen several people join boot camps for 6 to 7 months and get jobs right away. I personally love programming, and I got into it because of my love for video games. I started tinkering with StarCraft and all the different rules you could do in the map editor, and that really just solidified my love for that. But I've enjoyed programming for a whole decade, and I stayed in it because I love problem solving, and programming has a great work-life balance. If you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe, or buy me a coffee in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.